I found there's several things that really need to be in place in order for students to be motivated and willing to be working with you. One, we need to have like an understanding of why they are resistant to come into speech, whether it is their past experiences with speech. They might have been lifers, they might have been getting speech since early intervention. And here we are again pulling them out of class and reminding them that learning is hard for them. They're very aware as they get older. Once they leave the K to 2 learning to read phase, when they get to that reading to learn, they're much more aware that learning is a struggle. We need to have that deep understanding and awareness so we can have that compassion for them and incorporate that into our speech sessions really helps get the motivation.
Hey there, and welcome to the Speechy Side Up podcast. My name is Vanita Litvack, and I am so grateful you're here. I'm an ASHA certified speech language pathologist, author, and augmentative and alternative communication consultant who is obsessed with helping SLPs like you stop reinventing the wheel and connect with other SLPs in the trenches. Have you ever wondered how other SLPs seem to be doing it all with ease? Well, around here, you'll get to hear firsthand how SLPs are really getting things done while keeping evidence-based practice and self-care in mind. Think of this as a coffee date with your SLP friends. Get ready to be challenged and encouraged while we learn together. Today, I'm joined by Hallie Sherman, MS CCC SLP. Hallie is a licensed speech language pathologist in New York. She worked in the public schools for over 15 years before she left the schools to work as the CEO full-time for Speech Time Fun, Inc. At Speech Time Fun, Hallie provides materials and training for SLPs working with grades 4 through 12 to help them plan with ease and confidence. She does this through her SLP Elevate membership, her TPT resources, her podcast, SLP Coffee Talk, her virtual conference she hosts 3 times a year called the Speech Retreat, and other various trainings for organizations and associations. Hallie, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like it's been 5 years since we last spoke on the podcast.
That's crazy. I mean, just
I
how
know.
much has happened and children and COVID and crazy stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah, I don't think you had your second. I definitely didn't have my daughter, Olivia, and you were still working in the schools at the time, I think.
yes, I mean, I just left in June. So, June
Oh,
2023
okay.
when I
Ooh, I
left.
wanna talk about that a little bit. So we'll save that for the end because I feel like we are in very similar paths, so I'd love to hear some thoughts that you have on that. But let's see, does that cover everything, or is there anything else you wanna talk about before we talk about doing therapy with older students, which is, like, your forte?
Yeah, I mean, basically that's it. I spent most of my career working with the older speech students. That was my jam. That's where I was thrown in. I didn't really plan on it, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's awesome, but you have such a passion for it, and I feel like you either love it or you hate it, so it's great that SLPs have you as, like, a go-to resource for that population.
Yeah, I mean, I was thrown in. It was the only that was the job given to me. I mean, when I was looking for jobs in the schools at the time, what, 15, 16 years ago, there was went from my CF year, there was a million positions, but I had no experience. Then all of a sudden, the year later, there was no jobs. I'm like,
Wow.
where did they go? I'm like, now I have a year. I'm good. I have my license now. And I was interviewing, I was nonstop, just going, and I was hopping leave replacement to leave replacement, just taking any school-based position I can get. And they're like, well, and I had an interview with the middle school and high school, and I was like, "Wait, these kids are taller than me. Like, like, really? You want me here? Are you sure about that? I don't know what I'm doing." And after that, I realized once I started feeling comfortable with it, I could never look back. I don't ask me anything about kindergarten other than my own children, but
Yeah.
speech-wise with the little ones, I know nothing about it
Yeah, that's
anymore.
great. That's such a good story. Well, it was meant to be, so I'm glad it worked out that way for you. But let's talk about ways that you keep older speech students motivated.
Sure. So I found there's several things that really need to be in place in order for students to be motivated and willing to be working with you. One, we need to have like an understanding of why they are resistant to coming to speech, whether it is their past experiences with speech. They might be lifers, they might have been getting speech since early intervention. And here we are again pulling them out of class and reminding them that learning is hard for them. They're very aware as they get older. Once they leave the K to 2 learning to read phase, when they get to that reading to learn, they're much more aware that learning is a struggle. They're reminded when they are being pulled to the back of the room by their teachers to get some extra support, when they have to take extra time on their tests, they're getting modified. They're much more aware that learning is difficult for them. And now we're pulling them from maybe a special, something they're good at, to go work on learning stuff again. So once we have that understanding of, okay, this is where they're coming from. Okay, like I get it, like, we need to have that deep understanding and awareness so we can have that compassion for them and incorporate that into our speech sessions really helps get the motivation. Also building that rapport with our students. We can't just jump right into goals and say, "Hey, do this, I said so." We need to take the time to build that safe environment where our students feel they can trust us, that we can be that go-to person, that they can express that, "Hey, I just took a test and I don't think I did so well," or "This is really hard for me," or "I wanna work on X, Y, and Z so that I can get this kinda job, or ask this girl out on a date." Whatever it might be, we need to have that comfortable dialogue and relationship with our students where it's a safe space for them to express when things are hard. Being able to say, "I can't do this, I need help." They're not gonna just do that with anyone, and if we just jump into goals and structure and make things very drill-like, they're not gonna wanna do that with us. So we need to build that rapport with them, take the time to listen to them, have that conversation, sometimes putting that data book on the like, on the shelf a little bit and taking a step back and saying, "How can I make sure this student feels safe with me? How can I show them that I too have weaknesses, that I can't draw. I can't play soccer. You don't want me baking a cake, it will taste horrible." All like, I share these things with my students, and a lot of them, when I say that I can't draw, they're like, "I can." And I'm like, "See, you're gonna help me, like, I'm gonna help you, you're gonna help me, and by the end of this year, you're gonna be, able to answer these comprehension questions really, really confidently, and I might be able to draw a little bit better because you're gonna help me out this year." And just have showing them that we have weaknesses too, and it's okay to express it and be aware of it. It really, really helps. Also, teaching students about their learning styles. Sometimes we know that flexible seating and all this stuff really helps them. But do our students are they aware that it's okay to need different things for learning? And being able to teach them how to advocate for themselves, like, "Hey, I need a break. I need to go for a walk. I need to go get a drink of water. I'm realizing that this, like, is this just too much for myself?" And being able to for them to feel comfortable to do that with us, and then to be able to do that in the classrooms, and they can still be more of an advocate for themselves and their learning. All these different things really help play a part in helping our students feel safe, willing to take risks with us, and then they're gonna be more motivated. If they feel like they can trust us, they're gonna want to impress us. They're gonna want to work hard for us because they see that in us, like, they wanna get that validation, like, we can be that encourager, that cheerleader for them. Like, "Look." And then also just getting those quick wins with them. Sometimes we jump into things that are just too hard for them. Sometimes we need to take a step back and, like, how can we just show them, like, "Look, this you can be successful." I also like to show them that it's not a matter if you like, even if I'm playing a game with them, it's not a matter of you're gonna get it right or wrong, it's when you're gonna get it right, because I am here to help you get it right, and they know that. And just building that environment where that it's okay. Like, you don't wanna read out loud? I'm not gonna make you read out loud, but I'm gonna make you work. You're gonna have to still work towards your goals. Just don't have to read out loud, that's fine. And giving them that say a little bit, and so that really all those different pieces together really helps put the ingredients of the recipe of a engaged, motivated student in a successful older speech student session.
I love that. I love those suggestions. I love the first thing you said in particular because it's something I think a lot of us don't think about is You said at that age, they're starting to realize that learning is hard for them. Maybe it keeps being brought up, the weaknesses that they have when it comes to academics or even speech, but who's talking about their strengths and the fact if they're getting extra tutoring or they're being pulled out or they're being pulled out of things that they're good at, that could be really deflating for them. So I feel like that's a really, really good point and something that we should probably be working on even more, like trying to help with these kids even more, trying to understand, how to make it a more positive experience for them as well. So not just like bringing games that they like, but looking at the whole child and mentally what are they thinking about like school because everything relates to how are they doing like academically and sometimes it's outside of just that one artic sound that you're working on. It's like so much more than that.
Like, maybe they wanna ask a girl out and she had that
Yeah,
R sound in her name. Like,
right.
if we don't find that out, we will never know. And that could be
Yeah.
so motivating for that one student who does not wanna work with you and has been fighting you left and right. But if you took the time to just find out what do they wanna get out of coming to speech? What do they
Mhm.
hope to their job goals, their academic goals, what are their dreams? And finding that out, and we can incorporate that into our lessons.
I love that. So, how do you know what goals to address for your older speech students?
There's a lot of different ways. I find having a very thorough evaluation and intake process, having that conversations with the teachers. What have they tried? What have they not tried? Where are they struggling? And not just looking at, okay, they're struggling, let's jump into therapy, but taking the time to more than just the self, the told, the cat, all the whatever the test, like that's just like, okay, we need the numbers. But how much more information can we get? How can we probe a little further? And also having a deep understanding. I love the Scarlsboro reading rope. It's a great visualization of what it takes to be a successful reader. We know decoding is necessary, but language comprehension is such a key component. In order to be a successful reader, our students need to have verbal reasoning skills, vocabulary, background knowledge, syntax, and more. And those are all our domains. So if we can probe further and see, okay, where is the breakdown? Where are they struggling? Not just, okay, here's the end product, they can't do it. But why can't they do it? We get to be that detective. We get to be that doctor, really truly diagnosing why are they struggling? Because we know most of our older students, they're getting reading support. They're probably getting special education support, and it's not enough because those professionals are not trained in language. They might trained in reading, but even still, they're still practicing over and over again. And I always use the insanity quote, like, if you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, that's insanity. Remember Albert Einstein? Like, so we get to look more closely at what areas are they deficient in, and we can hone in on that. And by doing that more as part of the evaluation process, and it doesn't have to be that fancy and thorough. Take any article, take any tool, and just ask further questions. See if they have the background knowledge. Do they have the sentence structure? Do they understand vocabulary? When words get tough, what are they doing? When are they skipping over it? Are they getting the gist? And by really truly understanding our role, and then also I like using just like Bloom's taxonomy. It's a great hierarchy. I know as SLPs we love a good hierarchy on what goals to work on. Classroom teachers are expected to take their students, say in a social studies class, they're learning about branches of government. They're first starting out basic vocabulary, teaching them those basic terms and whatever they need to do to introduce a topic. By the end of that unit, by the time they're getting to that unit exam, they're expected to go up the entire hierarchy. Their students are expected to be able to create, be able to use the information very thoroughly and contextually, but, like, they have to go up the entire process in order to get there. And so it's a great starting point for us as SLPs, like, we can't expect our students to make inferences if they can't recall. We can't expect our students to be able to summarize if they can't answer basic WH questions on what they just read. We can't expect our students to compare and contrast characters in a text if they're not understanding the vocabulary of what they just read. So we need to not look at what the standards of the curriculum they're working on, which is often what those reading teachers and special ed teachers are doing. We got to say, where are they at? And why are they struggling? Why are they not able to get to that next level? So that's where I look at, like, really truly try to take a big picture look at the student. Where are they functioning? And then also, where are they reading at? Maybe are they struggling because we're giving them things that they can't decode? That are way of that their the vocabulary is maybe too complex. The language structures may be too complex. If we take things and not only reading levels, length and like the length of a text, how they do at a paragraph level, how do they do at where's the breakdown? And also looking at look at the psych report, look at the special education report. Sometimes like working memory, processing speed, all these different things really come into play on how to work best with that individual student. That all students with the same need might have a need for a different purpose, and that will need a different approach and individualized to them based on all that stuff. So really, truly taking the time, and it doesn't need to take long to do. It can be, hey, send an email to the teachers. Hey, how are they doing? Let me see these reports. And while you have that student in front of them, like after you do the evaluation, how can you probe a little bit further to get just more information, to get an really truly an idea of where are they at and how can I start them there versus I need to get them here, so I'm gonna start there.
I love those points. And it was Bloom's taxonomy, you said, right?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
perfect. Yeah, it's like building those foundational skills. It's really, I was talking to somebody else on the podcast maybe like a few months ago, and she was saying that the curriculum is moving so fast nowadays. You can't teach the vocabulary of the lesson because once you taught that vocabulary, they're already on to the next lesson. So it's like teaching, like you're saying, going back and teaching those foundational skills so that whatever the vocabulary is that they come across, they can accomplish, achieve those goals or achieve what the target is for that lesson. So, yeah, I think it's really, really important to make sure that there's a good foundation there. And that's probably why there's such a gap. And then I worked with middle school students when I was in the schools, but I was providing assistive technology. So this is where I was starting to get a lot of referrals for reading pens. And it's almost like when you're recommending AAC for a child who's minimally verbal, it's like, if we give it, are they just going to rely on the AAC device? And we know that that's not the case. And it's like, if we give the reading pen, are they just going to rely on the reading pen? And no, that's not the case either. It's just going to help them target those other goals that need to be like the comprehension and the comparing and the contrasting while they're working on decoding and building on those foundational skills.
It comes to a point where we need to give these students compensatory strategies so that they can be successful. Like they've been exposed to some of these skills and it's not sticking. So
Right.
we need to do something different. So whether it is text to speech or a reading pen, like what can we give them so that they can participate with the curriculum as much as possible?
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe that's just not their strength, but they probably have strengths in other areas. So, like you said, giving them the compensatory strategy so that they can still participate and feel successful versus like, I'm going to be working on this for the rest of my life.
Exactly, exactly. And I found just giving them resources that are at their level so
Mhm.
that they can feel successful. That's how we get them motivated. That's how we get them those wins. That's how we get them making progress towards their IEP goals. I love telling this story. I'll never forget, I had a sixth grade student, and we were reading a article that was, he was sixth grade. It was written at third, fourth grade reading level, which is at his reading level. And it was on YouTube, something he was very into.
Mhm.
And he said to me, he goes, I like reading in here, but I don't read for my teacher.
Yeah. Well, who wants to read about like history stuff? I mean, some people do.
And I didn't wanna say,
Yeah.
like, "Well, 'cause this is at your reading level," like, and
Right.
whatever, but, like, that's the kind of environment we wanna create and resources
Mhm.
we wanna be using is things that our students can feel that empowerment and then feel that success. He was willing to answer very challenging questions with me because he felt successful, and he recognized that he can't be this successful in the classroom, and that's when I had a conversation with the teacher after that, and was like,
Right.
"So, by the way, you might wanna try
Yeah.
this, but"
Exactly. Well, and the way AI is going, we don't know what is gonna be required in the classrooms in, like, 10 years. I mean, I think reading will always be around, but the level at which they're requiring kids to read to complete assignments might be look very different. Like, for instance, I wrote a text message to a family member today using Open Chat AI. That text message probably would have taken me 20 to 30 minutes to formulate. I don't know. I get so caught up on what is it saying? Are they going to interpret it this way? But then ChatGPT says it's good. It seems good to me. At least it gets me started, So I imagine that we're going to see that across the board, in academics in the future.
Totally. Things are gonna definitely be changing as the environment we live in changes. It's so
Right.
true.
So you talked a little bit about reading. How else do SLPs play a role in literacy and language comprehension?
Again, just we language comprehension and literacy is everywhere. Whether
Mhm.
it's if you're working with students with AAC and vocational training type stuff like road signs and safety, like reading is everywhere. Words are everywhere, and we need to always be incorporating that into our lessons and being very mindful of how we can always be making sure we're always a literacy based approach as much as possible. And it doesn't always have to be with a book. It can be just with words everywhere. But just making sure that our lessons are meaningful for our students this way, we want that carryover. So again, knowing where their goals are and knowing what they want to get out of speech and what their purposes are, but how can we make sure that we are helping them be as successful as possible outside of our speech room? So how can we show them, hey, we are working on summarizing using a graphic organizer here. How are they going to use this outside of our speech room? How can we show them how this is not just isolated in our speech closets? How can this benefit them? Oh, when the teacher asks me to write a book report. Oh, when the teacher asks me, do I understand? This is a tool that will help me demonstrate I do understand. I can say it in my own words. This will allow me to know how to write a summary, how to whatever it might be. So making sure that all of our activities are just relevant and showing them how it is going to be utilized outside of the speech room is really the way to be as impactful in terms of literacy and comprehension. And then just always trying to up the rigor as they are being successful, showing them, okay, we're going to take it up a notch. You might see more questions, more like this one. That's really just as similar as what we were doing before, where you were successful, and trying to take them from where they can be successful and just keep on challenging them in small doses so they don't shut down, but that we can eventually can get them to where they need to be and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So you are so good about sharing like tools and websites for working with older speech students. Can you share some of those here?
Sure. One of my favorite sites these days is Wonderopolis. It has free articles on you can anything your students might be into. Like you can type in refrigerators and there's like you know, how refrigerators are made, if that's something your students are into. You can type in video games or anime, and there's articles on there that you can use for literacy-based approaches. You can work on Tier 2 vocabulary, you can work on summarizing, you can highlight artic sounds and have your students practice reading while working on their articulation sounds. You can work on written expression, you can work on social skills, have a debate on 2 topics, whatever it might be. I love being able to use student interests in a literacy-based approach, and that's one great site that you can just find articles on anything under the sun. There's a lot of pictures, so for the background knowledge. So that's one great tool that I love for just articles and pulling things out. I also love one of my favorite sites is Bamboozle. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's like a game show. You can easily create your own games or search right on the site. You don't need to pay for the upgrades if you want to, but you don't need to. I never did. All you need is a free login and you can just type in main idea. A whole bunch of main idea games will pop up and you can select 1 to 4 players. So if you have five students in your group, just make teams. It's okay. You can even change if you hit the pencil mark right on the site. You can even have your students come up with their own team names and they get very customized. They get very into it and they just pick a number from 1 to however many questions you have, and the question pops up, you say right or wrong, and it seems silly because it's so basic, but they love it. And there's like power ups where you can lose points, steal points, makes things a little bit more interesting and fun. So it's just a great way to just at the end of a session, just reward your students in a fun, interactive way of practicing the skill that they just worked on. It's a great way to collect data because they're each taking a turn to like answer a task, and you can just jot down your data at the end. And it's just fun and engaging and not having to reinvent the wheel because there's so many games right on that site. Another fun one that I love is Blookit, Blooket. Again, you don't need to pay for it. You need is a free login. For this one, your students need a device, but a lot of older students, I know a lot of districts now, we were one-to-one. My students had Chromebooks, so I just made them bring it to speech in case I decided to play a Blue Kit. And you can create your own games on there or search also from the many games already on the site. You can again on these sites just preview the questions and make sure that like they weren't written by a kid because some of them have been, and you can tell. But there's different game modes. I love the Gold Quest where they answer a question, and if they get it right, they get to pick from 3 treasure chests, and either the chest has gold in it or they can steal gold, they might lose gold. So again, it's not a matter if you get it right or wrong. The person who gets them all right could still lose because they just had bad luck with their treasure chests. So that one is a fan favorite of the students. They also like crypto hack on that site where they can hack come up with their little hack phrase, and if they get questions right, they can get a chance to guess the other students in the group's hack code. Different ways to just change things up. I'm all about my students know when they come into my speech room, you're gonna have to work, you're gonna have fun. You might not play a game, but we're always gonna have fun, and there's gonna be something different each and every time. I'm always gonna keep you on your toes, whether it is using Bamboozle or at the end, or Blue Kit at the end, or finding an article on Wonderopolis that is high interest to them. Something that is always just entertaining, engaging, incorporating their interests, and a little bit of fun at the same time while learning.
I love that. That's why I said you're always so on top of these websites and tools because I haven't even heard of those that you mentioned. So hopefully people that are listening haven't either and they have new tools to work with. And do you have any like blogs on your website that people can go to find even more tools? Because I know you have in the past.
Yes, I have tons. If you search, oh my goodness, I have so many, and I can even send to you if you can use in the show notes. I have a
Okay.
whole blog post with commercials, so you can use commercials for working on inferencing. I have a whole bunch of Super Bowl commercials embedded right on that blog post, so you can just stream it from the blog post, and the questions are right below it. Done. I did the dirty work for you. So I have that because I love using YouTube videos and commercials for working on critical thinking skills. I have also blog posts all on my favorite mini movies and YouTube videos like Pixar shorts that you can use for comprehension goals, vocabulary goals, recalling goals, social skills goals. You can really use it for anything. So yeah, speech time fun. If you search in one of the search tabs, games, websites, YouTube videos, I have all that stuff there for you.
Amazing. All right, so let's talk about your transition to full-time CEO. What was that like? Was it a slow process where you went from full-time to part-time, or was it full-time to just entrepreneurship?
It was something that was always on my mind, but I never thought I would actually do it. I was like, "No, I'm gonna retire, and then I'll do speech and fun when I retire." And then I realized, okay, that's like 16 years away that I can retire early, and I was like, I don't know if I
Mhm,
that was one thing, and I really love being able to support SLPs. It's my passion, it's my mission, it's really what lights me up is being able to help other SLPs help their students. It's a ripple effect. Like, I love helping my own students. If I can help 100 SLPs and their 50 students, I'm impacting even more. And I couldn't do so much while working full time, having a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old that are getting busier schedules as
mhm.
they come. So it was like I took my working hat off, put my mommy hat on, and then at night putting my speech time fun hat on. and it was just getting exhausting. And I was just limited on how much I could do with the limited hours in a day without burning myself out. So once I realized I can't keep doing that for that much longer and I was not going to make it to 16 more years, that's when I did started doing my research, got a hold of my union rep to find out what are my options, and going part-time was just not an option. So we did a little probing without telling my supervisor who I was, that there's someone in the district that was considering it, and she was like, "Nope," like, and, like, I'm easily replaceable. So, like, they replaced me in 3 weeks. Let's just leave it at
Mhm.
that. So, I resigned, they had my position filled very, very quickly. So there was no need for a part-time position in my district. I was trying to create one since I knew they needed to hire more SLPs. I was like, "I can be that little extra person that you really need that you haven't been wanting to hire." So when I realized that that was not an option, I looked into sabbaticals. I looked into all these things to like hold on, and because I was afraid of letting go of my pension and all that fun stuff. But when I really started looking at it and playing with the numbers, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I May I came back from, I think it was Memorial Day. I finally figured out when my exit plan was and came back from Memorial Day weekend, that it was like June, whatever, or end of May, and I hit send on that email and made the decision. It was scary. It was scary. I won't
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your authenticity and honesty around that because they're like the groups around finding alternative jobs for SLPs. There are so many people in those groups. So clearly, this is something that a lot of SLPs are thinking about across the board. But yeah, I feel like that's really like inspiring for people. And also just knowing that it's even scary for you. When you even have these other businesses going on the side, no matter what, it's still really scary to take that leap. So how do you feel? Because this is something I feel like maybe I struggle with a little bit, because I left in November of 2023, my part-time job. So I had the luxury of leaving the schools, going into a part-time teletherapy practice, and then I did that for about a year, and then slowly went more part-time and more part-time and more part-time until I was finally like, okay, now I can, make that leap. But so now it's been like over a year that I've been doing this will be 2 years in November, and I have my private practice clients on the side, but I feel like if my private practice gets, like, too small, I feel a little bit disconnected from the therapy side and, like, what SLPs are actually going through. How do you handle that?
The one benefit is what I do is I'm constantly talking to SLPs. So
Yeah.
I'm connected to the field, but the SLPs that I'm helping and providing support to. So inside of my membership, I am always asking, supporting, getting on calls. How can we troubleshoot some issues? And like I'm still very aware of what's going on in the field. I'm still going to conferences and learning. So what is the newest and latest trends in the field? I want to be aware of what is going on. And yeah, and I also know like if I do ever feel that disconnected, I can go pick up a client.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I can if
exactly.
and it's always an option. Like, SLEs in my former district are texting me like, "Hey, what what do I do with this kid?" So, like, I'm still getting connected to the field. I just might not be the one actually doing the therapy.
Yeah. Have you ever read the books From Strength to Strength?
No.
I just started it. Well, I'm almost done with it, but I highly recommend it. It's really good. So it talks about he's a doctor and I think of social psychology. And he talks about how there's two curves in life. And the first curve is the achievement curve. That's where all of your successes are. Your business career high is on that first curve. And then on the second curve, it's more of imparting wisdom and serving others. And it sounds like you're kind of on your second curve. He says if you can get on that second curve, you're going to live a very fulfilling life. So I think you would really enjoy the book. But he talks about people who are still trying to be on that first curve and still trying to compete and work at their best self and their highest point in their career and don't recognize the decline, then they tend to suffer the most because they lose that sense of identity. And he's like, we need to take a page from athletes. They'll work very, very hard and be in their careers until about maybe like their depending on what the sport is, around their 50s, maybe sooner, maybe 30s for soccer players, but then they retire and then they do something else. So he's like, whatever field you're in, it's across the board and it never gets better. So if you reach a career high in your 30s, that's your career high. Unless you like completely shift gears and jump on the second curve, you're never going to achieve the same thing if you stay on that same track. So I thought it was
I
really
love that.
interesting.
I love that. I gotta read it. Yeah, I found like I wasn't burnt out about my day job because I had so many tools on my tool belt that like I knew how to do my job quickly, easily. I can plan in minutes. It wasn't I can write my reports really, really quickly. I will also say also started taking a lot of graduate students to help me out. But anyway, you gotta do what you
No,
gotta
that's
do.
great. Yeah.
But but it was I just knew I couldn't be the best at everything while running so thin. I couldn't be the best SLP for my students if I was exhausted from and I couldn't be the best CEO of Speech Time Fun and help support SLPs across the globe if I am only able to work an hour a week. I was just unable to do so many big ideas. I had ways, and I still am constantly coming up with big and crazy, wild, crazy ideas that keep me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's a problem, but I couldn't do that if I was also working all day. I was just it was, and what really helped in this, and anyone listening that is wanting to consider changing placements and fields. One thing that helped me, I was actually working with like a mindset coach at the time because I was really struggling with like what to do, like like is this right? Am I cut out for this? She goes, "What's the worst case scenario?" She's like, "What happens if you fail at this?" And I was like, and I gave him a list with 10 things. I was like, I can go find another job. I
Mhm.
can go start a private practice. I can go. A friend of mine has a private practice. I can ask her for some clients. I can go call a university. Go be a super. I was like, I had so many ideas that I like listened to them ask. And she's like, "So what are you scared of?" I'm like, "You're right. I was more scared of what people would think. I was more scared of like my parents being like disappointed,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
like my coworkers being shocked and like mad at me for leaving. Who cares what anyone thinks? In the end,
Right.
it's
It's your
what I
life.
needed for me and my
Mhm.
family and my sanity and my mental health. I needed to let me not think of these things at 3 in the morning and let me think of them at 10 a.m. while I'm drinking my coffee while my kids are at school. And I can now do all these things during the day versus needing to do them at night. So
Right. Yeah. Oh, such good points. And I think really inspiring for anybody that's listening. It's great. We went both sides of the spectrum. People who love their job, love helping older students. Now they've got some great therapy ideas. People who are thinking about maybe making a switch, maybe have the push to do it now too. Hallie, this has been incredible. When's your next speech retreat? Are you allowed to announce that?
it is coming up. So we take purchase orders. You can sign up. It's 9 hours. And yeah, you can find out the lineup, the speakers, all that fun stuff at speechretreat.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure everybody listening has heard of you, but if they haven't, where can they find you on all of the places?
You can find me on all social media platforms at Speech Time Fun. I'm on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I try to TikTok. I'm there. I don't really know what I'm doing, but feel free to say hi because I am in there and I would love to see that people are responding. I'm on my blog is speechtimefun.com. My membership for SLPs working with older speech students is slpelevate.com. I also have a podcast, the SLP Coffee Talk. I'm on all podcast platforms. So if you're wanting to dive deep in Netflix binge, listen to topics all about older speech students or just low prep therapy ideas, websites like we were sharing, there's over 200 episodes over there that you can check out.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Hallie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. By the way, have you joined the SSU crew yet? By joining, you get access to the free good section on our website, plus podcast updates, special event notifications, and therapy inspiration. You can sign up at bit.ly/join SSU crew, all lowercase, or just find the link in this episode description. Also, don't forget to take a screenshot of this episode so that you can always refer back to it and share it on social media if you really love the topic. Take care and remember to always fill your speechy side cup first before you can pour into others.